सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Namaste to one and all. Today, I would like to a little deviate from the normal satsang which I used to have on Yoga Vasishta. But today I thought on the occasion of International Day of Yoga and also a few ideas from the Ramayana I would like to touch upon for the people that who did not hear my talk yesterday in one of the occasions. And this will be a fresh note. Otherwise, that it's a repeated note, but that's fine. First thing that I think is it is the seventh International Day of Yoga. Wish you all the very best and have a happy International Yoga Day. And when we are doing this International Yoga Day today, I was just reflecting on that how many people, how many ways that have contributed for this yoga today, that we are able to make this International Day of Yoga, something which is amazing. In fact, we always said that yoga is a culture of this life. This culture of this life, it goes almost like 15, 20,000 years ago. We always used to say about 10,000 years, but then recent findings I was hearing from one of the archaeologist reports, saying that it's almost like 18 to 20,000 years. So from that time that this culture has been there. So ever since this culture has been there, this yoga was the part of it. And not only that, the whole culture itself is the form of yoga. Because where do you see yoga, where you do not find yoga? In our day-to-day life. This is how that they have thought about it. In fact, later on we categorized them as Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. But when we did not categorize that, are the people who are the elderly people at home. During my childhood days, I used to see that the ladies or whoever it is there, that they used to have all these things without any naming them as yoga, but then it was a part of their life. So that means basically that all these principles that were there was part of this, was and is the part of this culture. And in fact, this is very important thing that this culture survived for 20,000 years, where other cultures, they have gone into the pages of history. We survived. It is because of this particular culture that is there behind it. Sanatana Dharma had this as hold behind it. Now, what is that which, if we try to look at, makes this particular yoga, as I said, that it is the part of the whole, or it's spread into the whole lifestyle in this particular place. So that we need to look into it. In fact, what happens is that where the culture is not having what is called as its own controls within, then this culture will not survive. That is the kind of thing. That means to say free for all. The moment it is free for all, then what happens is that the greed takes over, and the external material pleasures take over, and life becomes very small segment. Like, for example, I live for this moment, come what may. That's the way it happens. In fact, there is a beautiful story that comes in the Subhashita to show that. And this man is almost like the cobra is trying to approach him, and then he's going to be bitten. And any moment he has no other way to go, and it is raining and it's slipping, and he's on the tree, and then cobra is coming from behind. Any moment he will die. But in spite of all those things, that there is one, uh, that is a drop of honey coming from the beehive from above, and then he extend his tongue for that beehive, but that honey. That means at that moment, let me enjoy. That is the kind of thing that he was looking at. He was not looking at whether he lives forever, whether he lives for long period of time or there. Nothing like that. The same way, I just live for a small little my own pleasure, my own joy, my own limited kind of a requirement. That's all. Then what happens? Just imagine that what will happen to the mankind. So therefore, that a culture which has got that kind of a outlook, the cultures do not survive. The culture has to survive. That means to say the culture should have what is called as some guidelines and some responsibility that taken over by individual, and the culture itself takes over and gives that kind of responsibility to the others. It is because of that reason that this particular culture survived. And this kind of a thing, what we call it as niyama. Niyama means basically it's a, you have imposed, or you have self-imposed certain disciplines on yourself, and that's what is the way that we survive this culture. I discipline myself. It's not just because of myself. It is for the sake of the whole society and for the progeny to come. It is for the generations to come. So this way, basically, that you could see that several niyamas that are there. That's one of the reasons why this yoga itself says that abhyasa. Abhyasa means relentless, continuous practice, and this we have imposed on ourselves. Very small, little, simple thing that we can understand this in the way that if you want to become a fighter, a sword fighter, you have to do the relentless practice of sword fighting so that you can become a master of it. You have become an athlete. Look at the way that how many people, how many years of that they put that effort to see that they become whatever that the stalwart that they are in that field. That means in small little area, when you think of it, that you have a discipline, and that discipline includes the kind of food that you take, the routine that you follow, and the amount of exercise that you do, amount of exertion that you do on yourself. All these things are, in other words, amount of sacrifice that you do on the other side. All these things put together make him whatever that he is today. But we just go to the show or on the TV that we enjoy somebody playing a football, somebody playing a basketball, somebody playing something and extraordinary, that we see, that we enjoy that. And that joy is just only for about half an hour that we see the match and then get the joy. But behind that, the amount of industry that he put behind is something which is extraordinary. So that you can see that how much of an industry it is necessary for somebody to excel in particular field. If this way that at an individual level, at individual sports, that there so much is necessary, you mean to say that a culture survives without all those things? The culture also provides that kind of a discipline on the people. The moment that we say discipline, it means people think that there is no freedom, but it is not that idea. That's why I call it as self-imposed discipline, and that is the part of this culture. And yoga, actually, we have taken it to international level. It's how many people have taken this yoga to the international level for such a long period of time. In fact, we know that a visitor from Hyun from China, he took this message to China, and whatever all that you see in the name of various practices, martial arts that you see in China, they're all they have gone from here, which have gone in the name of yoga, and that's what it is. That means to say basically prana is chi, and therefore they have given the name of prana to all these things, tai chi, falun chi, having that idea of qigong. It's all about this particular practice of discipline that has gone from this culture. And not only that, that means when did he go? It was such a thousands of years ago. Payan is another person who has taken that message. When you take it that way into the West, how many people for such a long time, not only that they have taken, but then they have become that this culture has become their life. Of course, there are people in the Western culture who we know they are famous. They are, like David Frawley is one person who has really adapted the Indian way of life, full of discipline. In fact, I happened to go and stay in his house for a couple of days, and I found out that his house was in New Mexico was like an ashram, and the way that he lives is like a yogi living in an ashram in India, and that kind of life he has taken it from here. Like that, we have Conrad Elst, and who has taken this particular ideas of this culture to the West. Not only that, there are so many people who are obscure, who do not know so much, not popular. In fact, during my travel, I came across all these people. In fact, one of the very early book on yoga is from Switzerland, and just Rajasujian or something like that is his name. And he has taken this yoga almost like 100 years ago that he has taken. Mircea Eliade from Romania, he has taken yoga almost like 100 years back. Much before that, we have people who have taken to this. Not only that, today also, as I said, that the people who are not very popular, I happened to go to Ukraine, Warsaw, and Warsaw that I met with one family. Moment I went to that family's house, I really felt it was such a beautiful Indian atmosphere. And they said, with Hindi, they said, Aiye, baitiye, and then can I give you chai? See, the whole thing that they adapted all those things, and then we sit on the floor, and then we had chai, and they were speaking in Hindi. And they said, if you can speak in Sanskrit, we would love because it's easier language to speak than uh, the language, the Polish language that they speak. And when I saw that, I found that he has translated more than 20 books into Polish language. And what are these books? They are all the Upanishads, they are the Vedas. These are the things. While looking at all the list of things, I said that there is one person in Romania who has done a great work. His name is Mircea Eliade. He has written a book. And this man just goes and picks up from his shelf the book of Mircea Eliade, which he translated into a Polish language. Like that in Poland, and then not many people know about it. Similarly, in Poland, there's another girl, and his name is Caroline. Such a wonderful devotion for India, dedication for India. She has carried everything which is about India to the Western world, to the and gave that idea. In fact, it was those days, 50, 60, 100 years ago, when people took it, it was very difficult for them to take. Somebody from Bulgaria, he happened to come here with terrible asthma. I said, come on, you do these practices. He said, I cannot do these practices because that my rush, my um, the red government, that is what is the communist government, will not allow me to do any of these things because they know it is like yoga. Then finally he came to a compromise saying that I will switch off all my lights and do it because I suggested him that my friend in Romania, he does the same thing. Switches off all the lights and practices yoga. You also can do that so that nobody will see you. See how hard it was difficult for them to take these ideas, and they have taken. And this Romanian friend also, very young, in the beginning that he came across one book of yoga somewhere, and he knew English. So that English literature, small little book. Then he looked at the asanas there, clandestine, that means hiding somewhere. This book, he started doing the practice of yoga because basically that even his parents should not know it. In fact, those days it was the condition that your own parents may be spies against you. You have to take care of yourself. So all these things were there. So I was listening with rapt attention whatever that he was saying. And when he said that, I was regularly doing all those things. Suddenly one day somebody slipped a small little note in my under my door, and that was a note about vegetarian. When I received that note, I said, wow, there is a culture of people where people become vegetarian, they don't eat meat. He started doing that. A few days when he started doing that, somebody, he doesn't even know that how somebody noticed about it. And then he slipped one small little book on Bhagavad Gita. See, look at the way that how that people were taking all these things in such a clandestine way in the world. These are the people who are responsible for today what we are doing this wonderful festival of International Day of Yoga. Such an extraordinary tapas that these people have done. Long time. In fact, Czech Republic in Prague, I was invited by one professor. I went there. Professor said, "Let's speak in Hindi." And what a beautiful idea. I went to Ukraine. I was talking about Ukraine. And Ukraine, when I went to the University of Kiev and then I was giving a talk, they said, "Can you give a talk in Hindi so that our students will like to read it in Hindi?" Directly here. If you talk in English, then we do to translate it to Ukraine language. I said, "How many people know Hindi?" They said, "All these people know Hindi." 150 people were there in the audience. You know, it's only very few of the stories that I'm talking about, but it's only from my experience. But like that, how many hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of people have been practicing and doing yoga and all those things. And not only that, whatever that they have taken in the name of yoga, I don't mind it. Some people have taken the asanas in the name of yoga. Somebody have taken the meditation in the name of yoga. Somebody took the breathing exercises as yoga. Fine, you do anything. But then yoga is what really going around the world. And this is something which is extraordinary. And all these things, when you look at it, it means basically they are trying to adapt some discipline, which was not there in their life. And this discipline becomes something which is very important, particularly when the discipline comes from within our own being. It's not anybody trusting from outside, it is from inside. It might have started with a curiosity, it might have started with something which is strange. But then one thing that they all have done, anybody who has done with an idea that let me try to go through that experience. That experience was the one which was guiding them, taking them. When they started finding that, that is the reason, that is what paved them a way to India. And then, those days, 50, 100 years ago, that people used to come to India, sit with the teacher, and then learn, going through all the hardships. Hardships, I say, because how much a compromise that they had to do with their lifestyle, the kind of life that they were there having, and then the kind of lifestyle that they have adapted here. They have accepted everything. I've seen several people in the earliest days of Prashanti, when we didn't have any facility there, and they used to come and live to learn about yoga. It's something which is extraordinary. So all these people that have taken this yoga to the people around, and then they have created this way, in such a way, it has come to a level where we have now proudly say that International Day of Yoga. Let us celebrate. And this is something very unique because this is the only festival which is adapted by every country on this earth. Every country on this earth is practicing these things and then they enjoy this festival. New Year festival is for some places, Christmas is for some people they do not have, Muharram and all the other things are for some Muslim countries. So, like that, festivals are divided between various groups of people. But yoga is something which does not have any division of any groups. Though yoga itself has so many different groups that are there, mutually respecting each other, living with each other, all those things that are there. How much people try to defame this kind of yoga by making big of a few people who are there. Actually, yes, they've gone in a wrong way. But then, in spite of the fact that all those things that they have done, look at the way that how much that these people have really done benefit for the world. So today, that's why on the International Day of Yoga, I would like to see that we play uh, respect, homage, salutations to all these thousands and thousands and thousands of yogis all across the globe have taken this message of yoga from the time it's almost like spans to about 1,000 years back to till today that they have taken it relentlessly, continuously. That's what is important. What is their interest? Their simple interest is to see that whatever that they have found out, that is something which is really extraordinary in India. They should be able to get that kind of a thing in the world around. Apart from these things, you also see that an old man like Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada has gone all the way at a elderly days, and then he took the message of Krishna, went around the whole world. When first he started going there, people started laughing at him. He's taking the name of Krishna, but today, where it stands, and that's also the actually a big movement of yoga. That's ISKCON, International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And after that, we have several other institutions have gone. Chinmaya Institution has gone. Swami Dayanand Saraswati's institution has gone. West Swami, I mean Ramakrishna Mission, of course, they are the pioneers in the whole field. But apart from that, Paramahamsa Yogananda has such a wonderful following there. When you look at all these things, that you see that how many different people have put their heart and soul behind that. Is it not necessary for us to remember them, pay our respects on this particular International Day of Yoga? My salutations to all of them on behalf of all of you. Second thing is, as I said, that what is that they wanted to take it. Basically, they want to take this idea of discipline, and this is the country. When we say that yoga is a culture, that means it's not something that you do. It's a way of life, and how our people have put this way of life in perspective to see that everywhere that this has been there. As I said, that where this discipline is not there, where this kind of controls, checks are not there, and that kind of cultures, they have gone down the drain. Whereas we survived for 10,000 years because that we have these checks in various different ways. In fact, one very important thing about this culture is that in this Sanatana Dharma, we have so many divisions that we have made for the sake of convenience, not for the sake of any one pitching one against the other. It is like that. And not only that, that we have thought about what is supposed to be the health of a human being much earlier before anybody else thought of it. And that's what is our Ayurveda. So wrongly it is translated in English as Indian system of medicine. It's not a system of medicine. It's an Ayuhu Veda. It's a knowledge of the self. And what is the knowledge that it has? Veda kind of a knowledge. That's why it is called as the Panchama Veda. That means to say it is given the grade of Veda. That means to say so many intricate details that are there carried in this particular Veda. That is something which is very important. That is why it is called as the Panchama Veda. And it's about the health. In fact, when you read the Charaka Samhita, Sushruta, then you feel they are not like any medical books that you are reading, Mark Manual book or something like that. It is like you are reading one of the Indian scriptures, Vedic texts. So that is what is the advantage that we have. But look at the way that in Ayurveda, we have such a wonderful concept of what is called as way of life is something which is important. Ayurveda also insists on that. That's why we have Dinacharya, Rutucharya, and all these ideas that are there, and particularly Vata, Pitta, Kapha, how we need to manage all those things. Is it not something which is the way of life? It's about the way of life, the correction that is made. It's not to take away your joy. It's not to see anything, but to see that you participate in the world, and but at the same time that enjoy being in this world. This world is a wonderful, precious place. And then your birth is a very precious birth. To carry on this forward, we need to have these kind of things that discipline that are given in the form of Ayurveda. Whereas when you look at yoga, though people might have taken the asana, somebody might have taken the pranayama, breathing techniques, and all that. But look at the way when Patanjali started, he started in the beginning itself that there must be some orderliness in the way that you do the things, both in the terms of being your interaction with the world outside and being with yourself. And that orderliness that you follow in the interaction with the world outside, he call it as yama. And at the individual level, he called it as niyama. Are they not disciplines? Are they not something that we really bound ourselves between some framework that we need to do it? And actually, this is what is the first thing which mm, Patanjali describes about abhyasa. That is practicing nairantarya asevito sthirabhumihi iti abhyasaha. So that means Dirghakala Nairantarya, that means to say for a continuous period of time without any break and adapt in your way of life. That's what is the way that Abhyas has been given. And further, we have given so many different ideas about yamas and niyamas. Not only yama niyama, if you look back into the earlier texts of not just yoga, but other texts that we have, Yajnavalkya has given seven niyamas and seven niyamas. Somebody else has given 10 yamas and 10 niyamas. That means to say that this, if you want to really grow, that means you need to really take certain amount of discipline on yourself, and that's what will helps you to grow. Apart from that, if you look at the varnas, in fact, this is what I said, that the whole society has been divided into various shades. Varna is wrongly translated as caste. Nobody casts anything, or you are not cast into anything like that. There are certain qualities that you have, and those qualities are something which are unique with you. And then what qualities that you have, and if I try to work with you against those qualities, it will harm you, and also the work will suffer. That's why he says, Krishna says, the work that you do has to be matched with the qualities that you have. That's why qualities he calls as guna, and then work is called as karma. And then he says that this varna, the shades are divided because of the guna karma, by the type of work, and then the quality that is that the quality that a person has, or the type of a person. So based on that, these two things are matching. That's what is the way varnas have been divided. So it's not the question of any hierarchy about any of these things. It is to facilitate that somebody whose nature is something that you put along with that. Is it not a particular discipline? And not that there is only rigidity, there is something which is rigid about it. Now, somebody can go to a different kind of a thing. Yes, he is always welcome to do it. A Shudra is Shudra, fine. But if somebody, he would like to become Brahmana, yes, you are also ready to become a Brahmana, you can find. But what is the difference between Shudra and Brahmana? And our culture, Sanatana Dharma has given that Brahmana has higher degrees of disciplines, higher degrees of these things. Why they have given like that? Because basically, by nature, by his own quality, that a Shudra is a person who is not that sensitive, and a Brahmana is somebody who is very sensitive. Kshatriya is somewhere in between. Vaishya is sensitive in a different direction. So looking at upon your the different types of sensitivity, they have divided these things. There is nothing wrong about it. And the way that they have also given discipline. In fact, the kind of discipline that Brahman is given is so extraordinary. That means to say, he has to see that at the lower level centers of his body, that activities are cut down. That means to say, he has to go more and more to the higher centers so that his discrimination, his thinking, his analysis, and his conclusions are not affected by anything at the lower level. Some small little attraction comes at the lower level, does not disturb him. So this kind of a person is a person reliable when he takes his advice of it. So these are the people who are giving advice to everybody because that they are at that position of discipline that they could give that advice. So therefore we had this kind of a discipline at all these varnas that are there. In the Shudra level, that means to say he doesn't use any of his intellect so much, but he just does the work, whatever that is entrusted to him, he just does it mechanically. For a person who does that, you don't have to have much discipline that is there. You go to the work and then do the work and come out of it. Be honest about that kind of a thing. That is what is given. It may be an engineer, it may be a stone cutter, it may be anybody. But if somebody by nature is something like that, who can do only labor job, only the work where the brain is not involved, fine, you go ahead and do it. He has a place in the society. Like the way that when I was an engineer, I had a colleague of mine. Often people think engineers means that they are intellectuals, so therefore brilliant. Not all the engineers are like that because passing an engineering course is not that difficult. But then afterwards, when the you go to the career, then you see that what is the type of work that you choose. So he was appointed as an engineer working with me, and then there was a job where you collect the data from various places, put them into the an Excel sheet, and then put all those things together, and then forward it to various people. It's absolutely purely posting kind of an activity. No intellect is involved in that. It's like the computer is doing all that, then you are just putting this together as a man that is there. So I saw him, he was doing for doing very good work, 3, 4, 5 years that he was doing it. So I thought maybe that he would like to do some very special designing kind of a thing, challenging kind of a work. So I said, can I put you into the design work so that you can, this job, somebody, a new entry can do it and all that. After about 1 week, he came to me requesting, "Sir, please, Raghuram, put me back into that job. I'll be happy with that." Why? Because he doesn't want to exercise his mind. In fact, when I look at his lifestyle was like that. It was contented with the way of repeatedly doing that kind of an activity. So why do we burden him? Guna karma vipahakashaha. Put his nature and then put the activity matching together, he'll be fine. So this is the way that we have thought of various things. But the more and more that somebody goes to a higher and higher level, higher in the sense at the intellect level, unless until that you take your energy to the intellect level work there, you will not be able to be successful there. So that's why there are so many suggestions that are there in the form of discipline. So therefore, like for example, if somebody has to do Kshatriya job, look at the amount of discipline that he has to do, training that he has to do with his body. A simple player has to work for 6 to 8 hours a day to maintain his stamina, to maintain his capacity to play. In such a case, that what about the war? What about the soldier that who is going for the war? So all these things are something which is Kshatriya. So therefore, that there are some people are cut for that, or some disciplines are necessary so that you can maintain to be at that level. So therefore, these four varnas that they have got, all also different types of discipline that were involved in that. That's one of the reasons why, though these varnas were there right from the beginning of the creation, we never had a problem between one varna with other varna. It's only the recent times the politicians made as a caste system, and then fight started between the castes. The second, another very important thing that we have is this ashrama dharma. There's also another very beautiful thing, that is a wide type of discipline that they have given. In fact, our whole life is divided into four ashramas. And these four ashramas, the first ashrama is the childhood days. And second is the way that you are married, and then you are employed and you are young. And then third is the moment that where you are middle aged, and the fourth is the higher age. And this we call it as uh, mm, what is called as the brahmacharya, brahmacharya, vanaprastha, and sannyasa ashrama. These are the things that are there. Grihastha, sannyasa ashrama, and look at the beautiful way that they have given. When the child is growing at the beginning level, then there is a discipline in the name of Shreyas and Prayas at that level. It's a very, very thought over, highly thought over kind of a discipline that they have given. What is that discipline, Shreyas and Prayas, which even Kathopanishad refers about this particular thing. Prayas means that what you like. Priya, it comes from Priya. Priya means I love, I like it. And what you like, it's supposed to be prayas. Shreyas comes from Shriya. Shriya means what is good for you. So many times, what is good for you may not be what you like. In fact, there is a joke somewhere that I read. A child saying, Mom, why God put all nice things in the junk food? See, that means to say it's supposed to be not to be eaten, but then all nice things are there. This is how our culture, this Sanatana Dharma, what he has given is, in the childhood days, brahmacharya days, that give the child what is supposed to be good for him, only make him available to see that those things are provided for him. When they don't know the other kind of it, the then they start eating what is called as the right kind of food. They develop taste for that. They started liking that. So what is good for them also becomes what is they like. Prayers. It's not trusted. It's not. But this is what is the training that they have given, and that's what is the brahmacharya ashrama. In brahmacharya ashrama, because that is the time that the child has got stamina, child has got a capacity to, you know, adjust himself, and also there is so much of, uh, you know, he has the power to absorb anything. So give all those things, the training, this, that, all kinds of things that you give him, the kind of food that you give, the kind of lifestyle that you give, which is supposed to be the thing which is good for him. And that's what is prayers, what is Shreyas is given in the childhood for 16, 18 years, as long as that he's in the brahmacharya, he's in the school, he's in the teacher. That's what this culture has given. After that, when his second stage of life, then he enters into, yes, and even the brahmacharya ashrama, that you are so focused on your learning and your discipline, your education, all that, you don't have any attraction towards the other sex, the other gender. You are just only on this particular thing. You don't even know anything about anything, but only this educating yourself in that particular direction. That was the thing. Afterwards, your married life. That means you are given access to sex, and also that you start earning money. All right, whatever that you would like to have, you could have it. So this kind of an economic freedom he has. And that economic freedom initially tries to push him towards something which is called as, yeah, I love this, I love that kind of a thing. And soon he realizes that whatever that he temporarily acquired as I like it, or maybe peer pressure that I liked it, soon he comes out of it. How many people just come back to the same thing which is right from the childhood, whatever that is supposed to be good for them? So that means to say lifelong, then you don't have to put a check on him, what he eats, what he does not eat, but he has a self check within himself. Once you put that self check, naturally his health will become fine because he's eating only the right kind of food, right quantity of food, right frequency, right way of life that he lives. He does not abuse himself. So, as it is, what happens is that he becomes healthy, he becomes useful to the society. At that level, now he has a lot of energy, he has training from the previous life. So, therefore, that all the training he does really earns money, sets a example in the society, a successful household, a successful business, successful worker, all those things he does. But the next level, even that work that he does, all those things should not become his addiction. Therefore, next discipline comes there. And that's what he says, that third stage where you are into the next stage, where you do not involve, you become more of an advisor. You will not do it, but you make other people to do it. So that means that slowly you withdraw from active participation in the whole thing. That means to say the attachment that is supposed to be about the world outside is slowly being receded from you. And therefore, that you go towards turn to yourself, turn to the knowledge. And then the last journey is where the world is wonderful. You have nothing to do with that. And then you enjoy the world, but at the same time, you are about the inner self. So these four ashrama dharmas that they have given are also something like that, very important. And they have basically the most important is the discipline that is there. Apart from that, we have created a samaja, the society outside. And we have very eloquently, our culture said that samaja dharma. That means you are never alone. In fact, the moment that you grow to become a householder, you are creating a unit in the society. That means how your family is there, how your wife and children that you are managing with, husband and children, all that, whatever it is there, it should be a model to the society. The society should be able to emulate that idea. And you create this kind of healthy units in the society and you are put together. And that's what is Samaja. Therefore, we have Samaja Dharma. Whatever that is required for the Samaja, the society, that you try to provide that. At the at the and In this process of doing it, you discipline yourself. That means to say, when you are in a neighborhood, you don't necessarily create that kind of a thing around yourself so that the others become. This is the not a kind of a thing. Samaja dharma is where you go along with the whole thing, that you see that you carry the samaja, the society with you. Therefore, we have the samaja dharma, the highest of the dharmas that we have. So this way, when you look at it, there are so many different ways that this discipline has been introduced in every individual, and this is all nothing but yoga. So all these things are part of yoga. Now, what happens is in the world, you can see that we can take the idea of yoga, an asana we can take it, a pranayama we can take it. The rest of it, we don't really have to take it in a big way, but it seeps in there. Like the way that look at how many people in the world today has become vegan and vegetarian. So many number of people all over all across the world. In fact, in America, I got the report saying that meat industry is worried about the way that people are becoming right, left, and middle. Earlier, they thought only the ethnic Indians are coming and then becoming vegetarian. They are becoming vegetarian. We could we could convert them into non-vegetarian. It's very easy, but slowly it is happening. It's not that ethnic Indians who are converting into vegetarian, but the local Caucasians, everybody, they also become vegetarian. That has become a big this thing. I went to Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia, and there I somebody said that there is a all vegetarian restaurant. I said, wow, in this part of the world, that's all vegetarian restaurant can survive. So I went there, and who will come there? It's a huge one. There are hundreds of people are having the food there. So I asked the owners that what made you to start this. He said that I went to India. I was there for. I enjoyed the food, and I was never a restaurant man or anything like that. Enjoyed the food. So next time I paid a second visit to India, then I said I should go to these restaurants and learn how they cook. So I went to the North India and learned all the restaurants and worked there as volunteer and then learned all those things. Then I came to South India and worked with them. And then I learned all those things. He was actually basically a contractor, a builder. But then he learned all those things and started a beautiful restaurant there. How many people are turning towards that vegan and vegetarian? How many people are now adapting what is called as a cow culture? They're rearing cows, they're developing the cow sheds. And like that we have several of them in England, several of them in USA, and other parts. In Germany, I visited myself a center where huge cow shed is there. All these things take that. It's not just only the, of course, we said International Day of Yoga, but then yoga is just like an entry. But what we are trying to take is a disciplined life, a life where it is harmony, health, and also fun. It's a beautiful, great joy that is there. And by adapting this kind of a thing, what happens is that not only that you are healthy and safe, but environment around you becomes healthy and safe. You can really save this environment. Not only that, all the other species on this earth can become healthy and safe. Can you imagine when we conducted a course of yoga in Japan, in China? We said that all the students for 30 days of their attending our course are purely 100% vegetarian. They maintained it. Not only that, by the end of it, many promised that they would continue to be vegetarian because that is something which they really found out. It's so useful, so wonderful. So, this way, in various parts of the world, that this yoga, along with that yoga, what is happening is the whole aspect of any discipline is called as yoga. That's why we have yoga means abhyasa, vairagya, abhyam, tannirodha. So these things are going in various ways. And how many people are now adapting this Ayurveda? Because they understand that they don't have to abuse their body with the chemicals. So therefore, chemical medicines they don't want to, and the non-chemical medicines, and that's what they are going for Ayurveda and yoga. So these are all the things which are very important to see, that a lifestyle change that is happening in the world. And this is what we always say: yoga is a way of life. Yoga is not something that you do on the mat. Yoga is something that enters into your cells. That way, when we take it, we are really paying our gratitude to all those greats. Of course, that the saints, sages who have given these things in India. But more important thing is, we are also indirectly paying our homage to all those individuals who have taken yoga, non-Indians, and then taken yoga and then spreading the ideas of yoga fervently, totally to the people, just for the sake of creating a better world tomorrow. So I was always thinking that our neighbors are spreading pandemic culture, we are spreading yoga culture. Let's take this culture forward. That's most important thing that we do. Thank you so much. So very happy. I said that because I wanted to give this elaborate idea about yoga, International Day of Yoga. I don't know. Earlier I said few things about International Day of Yoga. I don't know. It may be repetition for many, but anyway, it's a healthy repetition if I would say. A small little humor I realized about yoga is that, three Narendras who have given yoga to us. And first Narendra who has given us is the Paramashiva, Adi Yogi, Narendra. And he has given, because that's what the scriptures say, that he taught to Parvati. And then Parvati recorded all those things. Therefore, basically, this yoga science is there for us. Well, that's one aspect of it. The second Narendra is the one who has taken this yoga to the international platform. That's what is Narendranath Datta, whose name is Vivekananda. 1893, he has taken it to the Parliament of World Religions. First time in that August assembly of 7,000 audience who were there in an international forum, he gave the idea of yoga there. It is first time that he said that each soul is potentially divine and the goal is to manifest divinity. And that's where Raj Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga ideas that he gave, shared with them. And third Narendra is the one who has taken this yoga to the world forum called as the UNO, and with the then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, he introduced this concept of yoga in the UNO, and now it has become the International Day of Yoga. But then there is one thing common about all these three Narendras, that the first Narendra, that means to say Paramashiva, pestered his father-in-law to get married to this Parvati. Otherwise, he was not prepared to give his daughter to Shiva. But then he did manage to do that. But in spite of all those things, what happened? That in Daksha Yajna, that he has actually Dakshayani went into the fire and then Shiva became mad, going around the world. All that story that happened. All right. The second Narendra, when you go, Swami Vivekananda, he saw the announcement that in the month of April, Parliament of World Religions will take place. And then he thought that he should represent there. He went to America in the month of April, Chicago. When he reached the venue, they said that Parliament is postponed to September. And then in the cold country, cold place. And they also said that all the speakers, everything is fixed so that you have no chance. Now look at what happens to him. $7 in his pocket. And then in sannyasi dress, he was there in the cold of Chicago, where snowing on one side. My God, what kind of life he has to go through. But finally, when he happened to go to meet with, finally, with last effort of some friend of him, professor, he could enter into Parliament of World Religions. And when he entered there, he could create such a history there. He became the most sought after speaker, extraordinary speaker. What happened? Second thing. Third Narendra, poor fellow, he also had to suffer. Before he became prime minister, he was Gujarat chief minister. At that time, American government several times rejected his application for visa. They said this man is dangerous, he cannot enter into this country. But look at what happened. The moment he became prime minister, directly in very first visit, he went to UNO and he created the stir among the, because in the UNO there's the first resolution which was introduced in one particular meeting. The same meeting it was passed and it became an act. That's what is International Day of Yoga. That means to say all these three Narendras, they have faced absolute Himalayan hurdles, but then they have succeeded at the end. Why? Because that's what the power of yoga. Yoga is extraordinarily powerful. Yoga is something which can make. Failure is not a failure in front of yoga at all. It is something where you continue to march, go on, proceed so that you succeed. That's a message of yoga that always that it gives. So a person who takes to the field of yoga, there's never a situation where something is a failure. It's only a situation. Let's pass. Like that, we have done that all throughout the history of yoga. Now, why are we stuck with a pandemic called as COVID 19? This also not something which is like a hurdle, but it's also another beautiful occasion. It's a beautiful situation that we have. Is it not that how many ways that yoga is entering into the life in this particular time also? Look at the way that people they're stuck at home. In fact, to start with, during this pandemic time, people had Rama and Mahabharata, particularly in India, all over the world. All these ideas: wash your hands, wash your feet, put your clothes for wash, and all these things. Are they not principles of yoga? And then sit down alone and meditate, be calm down, or be friend yourself. Are they not everything about yoga? So that way, in the name of pandemic for the world, but it's a situation for us to see that the strength of yoga is one which brings us into a better life. In fact, it was so wonderful during the first wave of COVID 19. People were amazed to see that from Chandigarh, they could see the Everest peak, means what must be the clarity, purity of the atmosphere that was there. Atmosphere was pure, nature was pure, animals was pure, everything is pure. Let us try to maintain that. Let's continue that. Great people have given us yoga, but who have to maintain? Who is supposed to maintain that? It's we common people continue to maintain that particular ideas of yoga in our every moment of life. It's not just what we do on the mat. So, with these few ideas, I'll take leave of you. Thank you so much for being part of my satsang today. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.